Thank you so much, Dr. Doubles, and I appreciate the ability to move around. I'm Italian, and so this works great for me. I like to say that they must have run out of other folks because they gave one of those awards to a Yankee, and so I'm doubly appreciative. And as many of you know, Andrew Carnegie was a very impactful Scot, and so I feel that I'm here properly. We have a great tartan plaid from Carnegie Mellon that I love. So I was asked to talk today about liberal art colleges and their future, and I'm aware that St. Andrews University, had an unfortunate demise, and maybe it seemed rather quick, but I think from the outside looking in, we've lost more than 80 private colleges in the last 4 years, and it's not, I will tell you, it's not a surprise. I think that, like the church, higher ed is very slow to change, and as our economy changes, as expectations have changed, a lot of private institutions have not. So, and you heard from my background that I spent 20 years working at community colleges. And community colleges are all about, primarily about going to work after you're there. They're very much focused on technical degrees, trades diplomas, and so being a first generation college graduate myself, come from a very blue collar family, that resonated with me as I started working in higher education. And I was, brought up, as probably many of you were, that things should have a purpose. There should be practical. There should be a return on your investment for doing them. And I don't know that that's always been a focus, particularly around four-year private institutions, which is why so many of them have closed. So I came to Coker, almost 6 years ago, and the board was very clear with me that they felt the institution needed to transform. It was stuck, and it had been in decline for a number of years, but change had not happened. And I was pretty successful in my last presidency in Louisiana, and I understood, at least from my perspective, the thought process, particularly from parents of high school students, about what college should be today. And that is, they want to see a return on investment, which is not always aligned with a liberal arts degree. And so the title of what I'm supposed to talk about today is how to have a successful liberal arts college. And I will tell you, the only way to have a successful liberal arts college is to be an independently wealthy liberal arts college, which most of us are not, right? Most of us rely on financial aid, federal financial aid, state financial aid. We rely on parents believing that there's a return on investment for paying tuition and fees for their students. We are unable to just essentially pay for everyone and the cost of the programming be damned. There are a couple colleges out there that can do it, and certainly there are the select Ivy Leagues that have a draw to the liberal arts regardless of cost, because they tend to draw the children or adults within families with a lot of means. In other words, if you are somebody who's probably at Stanford, there's a chance that you're not taking out a lot of loans. You're probably borrowing more to come to Coker than you are to go to Stanford, right? So, and I would say to you, it's not just the financial return on investment, right? Because, if you're a parent and you're thinking about, well, what is my child going to do with a philosophy degree? What is my child going to do with a history degree? And am I paying for that? But the federal government has now decided that they are going to compare the earnings of bachelor's degree students to the earnings of high school only students, high school graduate only students. And if the graduates of your bachelor's program make the same as or less than the average high school degree holding, high school diploma holding individual in your state, you will not get federal financial aid for that program. Students cannot access it. So you may think that, and others may think, you have the most amazing history, bachelor's degree program in history in the state of North Carolina, but if those graduates after a year, if individuals who graduate with a bachelor's in history from Natalie Harder University after a year do not make more than individuals with only a high school diploma in your state, the federal government will not allow students to access Pell Grants or federal loans to enroll in that program. Which is why, again, you have to have your own money to pay for that, right? I'll take it one step further. Indiana just passed a law that if you, that the first blush is the new federal rule. And that is the state is going to look at whether or not an individual from a bachelor's program makes more than an individual with just a high school diploma. But if for 3 years running it is less than the person with the average income of folks with a high school diploma, the state will not allow that program to even be taught. So even if you have the means and you're interested in art history, for example, or to become an English major, the state of Indiana will not offer that program anymore. So when I say that, I mean, in that case, as the school, you can't even offer the liberal arts. I think the pendulum has swung too far the other way. I think there's no question about the debt issue, but to be honest with you, the vast majority amount of student debt held today is in master's programs, not undergraduate programs. They don't tell you that when they're touting all the hundreds of millions of dollars in student loan debt out there. Nobody says to you, you know what? 75% of that is held by individuals who get master's degrees. For the most part, individuals who earn master's degree make more than individuals who earn bachelor's degrees. It's an investment that individuals have made in those master's programs to differentiate themselves and earn higher wages. So, you know, I think there's a lot of times where folks just want to shout the headlines out to you and say, oh my gosh, it's horrific. We've got to do something about it, but they don't get into the weeds enough to understand where the problem, quote unquote, is coming from. I'll give you an example of this, just a little bit off the liberal arts piece, but it's very relevant to Coker. We started nursing programs 4 years ago. So Coker has about 1,000 students. We started a suite of nursing programs 4 years ago. We now have 250 students enrolled in our nursing and pre-nursing programs. Why is that? Because the rural South needs good nurses, right? And you have a pent-up demand for people who could be great nurses that can't travel to the places that offer nursing degrees, as was the case in Hartsville. So we stepped in and we said, this will be a win-win. Our local healthcare economy needs nurses. People here want to become nurses. It's not rocket science. But in order to prepare bachelor's individuals to earn their bachelor's of science and nursing, you have to have individuals with master's preparation in science of nursing to teach them. Well, last year in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the federal government decided that master's degrees in nursing should not be eligible for the same level of financial aid as other programs. Matter of fact, they swept a lot of the healthcare programs out of their ability to borrow at the same level as other healthcare programs. So if you want to be an MD, you can borrow, but if you want to be a nurse, you can't. If you want to be a chiropractor, you can't. If you want to be an occupational therapist, you can't borrow. I don't know, maybe somewhere else there's not a shortage of nurses and occupational therapists and chiropractors, but where we are, there certainly is, and that delineation is crazy. And I'm not getting political, but I was in D.C. in February as one of many people trying to argue for the fact that, first of all, I don't think the federal government wants to decide every year which master's degree programs they should. I mean, first of all, jobs come up, as you know, today that we didn't even think of last year, right? So now, for example, if I wanted to start a master's in artificial intelligence, those students interested in that master's program would not have access to the full federal financial aid because it's not listed in the 11 degrees that the federal government deemed worthy of full federal financial aid. It's inane. But to my point, so I was in Washington trying to say, trying to say that if my community that needs bachelor's prepared nurses, you cannot limit the number of master's prepared nurses. The little response I got from the chief of staff of our congressperson was, Natalie, you don't understand. We're trying to stop people from borrowing the maximum to get a psychology degree from Stanford. And I said, well, I'm not Stanford, but I have a community that needs nurses, and it's just that blind, got a headline, going to do something about it, and the impact at the local level be damned in a lot of different ways. So I say all of that about you're going to have to be an institution that's independently wealthy because you're going to lose financial aid for all those liberal arts programs. And in some states, you may even not be able to teach it. I don't know, maybe you can do an online course from another state. But, you know, at some point, and I'm getting off topic here, but I feel very strongly about this. We have to decide as a country that education matters. That we have more people to educate in this country than not educate. The county I'm from, where Coker is, less than 20% of individuals there have bachelor's degrees. There is no thriving county economy in this country with such a low level of educational attainment and a high level of economic vitality. So this mindset that folks have that you don't have to go to college, that college isn't worth it, 99.9% of the people saying that, they all have degrees and somehow it worked for them, right? But they want everybody else to decry higher education as a whole, when really the target is, I would say, and what I've heard, is the Ivy Leagues, right? Who educate, quite frankly, less than 7% of all the individuals that go to college in this country go to Harvard and, you know, Yale, and it's the boots on the ground schools, though, that are taking it on the chin. You know, when I was in Washington, I had a conversation with a staffer for our Senate, one of our senators, and I said, you know, help me understand, as a small business, which is what I am, you know, what Coker is. I said, I understand the frustrations you say you have about the Department of Education. I said, but you've now required me to do another report for you, which you're saying, if all goes well, it should only take my school 200 hours to do this report. I said, you know, you claim to want to decrease regulation, but you've just put at least 5 more weeks of work on me. And to be frank with you, when I asked, I said, and I don't understand the purpose of this report, they do not have a good answer for it. So I said, explain to me the juxtaposition of you want the Department of Ed to have less to do, less involvement, but you're putting more regulation on all schools, including Coker. So there's pressure on what they consider liberal arts that will come down to schools like Coker in unfortunate ways. Now, I would say fortunately for Coker, maybe, you know, when I was brought in, again, I come from a background where work is important, where I was the administrator and the president at schools where I felt you had to have a return on investment for people to invest their time and their money for tuition and fees. But I walked into an institution that was 180 degrees from that thinking. And I looked around and I said, we're not going to survive. The board was very clear that they knew the institution had to be transformed. But I said, what are we doing? How are we connected with our community? How is our curriculum relevant? In our case, one of the first things I started to do was have conversations with large companies in the community to find out why they hired our graduates. And you know what they told me? We don't hire your graduates. What? How do we not know that? And how do we accept that? Sunoco, which is a Fortune 500 company headquartered in Hartsville, did not have one Coker intern for the 8 years prior to my arrival, which blew my mind. And when you pushed a little further, they said, well, your business programs are outdated. So I was like, that's it. We're getting a new business dean. I mean, I just, in good conscience, could not allow that to continue. So over the last 5 years, just to be frank, we've transferred a lot of people out of Coker, and it brought in a lot of new people. I run my institutions on 2 words. It's excellence and integrity. And what undergirds that is accountability. It was an institution without a lot of accountability, and that just doesn't work for me. And so a lot of people chose to be successful elsewhere, or we encourage people to be successful elsewhere. Because you have to know where you're going, have measures to get there, goals to get there, and hold people accountable to making progress, right? So we are, almost 6 years in, a totally different institution. I mean, so different. And what was passed out is an example of, or is the example of how different we are today. So our new strategic plan really has a focus on 3 fundamentals. The first is personalized learning. So higher education, particularly liberal arts institutions, I think got caught up in this peanut butter approach to serving students. We're going to do everything the same for everybody. Everyone's going to do this program. Everyone's going to get this training. But I thought to myself, at a small school like Coker, where, as you know, Dr. Doubles, everybody knows everybody, I don't understand why we have to be that way. Can't we customize? Can't we personalize the learning? And it was very apparent to me and to my team that coming out of COVID, these young people needed a different set of supports. I mean, it's so vivid to me, orientation in 2023, where students were wondering why they couldn't get their meals delivered to their rooms. All right? Not because they've got a hoity-toity approach to life, but they're so used to eating in their rooms. Like, to me, it was so sad. They have to come out and socialize. So we had to really rethink, not just offer pizza and they will come. It's like, how do you grab someone by the hand and get them to socialize and communicate in a way, they hadn't done for 2 years of really important developmental milestones as a young person. And so we built on that, and so one of the focus areas for this next strategic plan is personalized learning. We're backing up when we get to know students. So once at small schools like us, once they deposit, then we're calling it a bubble of support. We're going to put 3 people around you who are going to be your go-to mentors from the day you say, I want to be a Cobra, Coker Cobras. Because it's, in particularly that first year, trying to figure everything out, we had gotten away from being student-focused. We would point, oh, it's over in that building, or listen, I'll send an email and we'll catch up later. Now, you better walk that student over to where they need to be and make sure that the person is there to help them. You better close the loop. Don't, none of this, I'll get to it later. You said you were going to do something, part of our accountability, to serve that student or their parents. You need to get that done. And then really also understand where students might have weaknesses, could be academic, could be social, whatever it is, and try to build them up before classes start, something we hadn't done before. But something I was very used to at two-year institutions, you had boot camps in the summer and bridge programs and everything like that. It's not anything new, it's just new for Coker. So that whole personalized learning piece, and that's where you start having the discussion about what do you want to be when you grow up, right? Although none of us, or fewer of us, are ultimately do what we earned our bachelor's degree in, they have to start thinking about careers from the get-go, in my perspective, which is where that second focus area, student experience, is so important, because that's where we're embedding a focus on careers. So one of the things that I think is great about small schools is that you do get to try everything. Dr. Doubles knows there's requirements around electives, for example, in arts. So you could be thinking that all you're going to do at Coker is play soccer and get your business degree, but then you're going to end up building sets for the theater department, or you might take a pottery class. I love that, because students really then are exposed to different things they just never thought that they would do. And young people, as you know, really don't do optional. So you have to force them, sorry, you have to take an arts elective so you can sing in musical theater, or you can help build sets, or whatever it is, but to get them out of their comfort zone. And when I talk to alumni, those are some of the most impactful experiences they had at Coker, is just getting out of your comfort zone. So that's built into that student experiences. They've got to have work experience by the time they graduate. 100% of our students have to have work experience. So how that connects to liberal arts is your first 2 years, it's still liberal arts heavy, because I believe in the liberal arts, it's how you learn to communicate, how you learn to debate, how you learn to research, how you learn to lead a team, how you learn to deal with conflict, all those things young people today can just avoid by texting someone, or turning off their phone, or not paying attention. You have to learn those things, in my mind, if you're going to be successful in a career after Coker, right? And so we have a commitment that 100% of our graduates are going to have work experience. We launched a career center 4 years ago, and it connects back to what happens after that liberal arts foundation, and that is about relevant programming. I could say you have to have work experience, but if we're not preparing you with information and again those soft skills to be successful when you go into your internship, Sunoco's not going to take interns from us. Carolina Pines Regional Medical Center, McLeod, MUSC, whoever it is, they're not going to take interns from us. So we have, at the same time we've launched this, doubled down on the relevancy of our curriculum. And that is what, for schools like Coker, are going to help us have longevity into the future. Because when a Fortune 500 company believes in your curriculum, they will invest in the school. They will offer scholarships. They will be impactful for you to stay relevant. So that's extremely important for us. The other piece in there for student experience, which is super important, is that we are building non-degree credentials into the programs. So what do I mean by a non-degree credential? I could give you a million of them, but here's just one quick example. Even in nursing, there are advanced, for example, life-saving care procedures. There's advanced cardiac care procedures that in the past, and for most schools, nurses who graduate go to work and then get those certifications. We're going to build them in, we are building them into our nursing program, so our nurses are more sought after and more valuable from the time they graduate than nurses without those credentials. Students in our business program, there are plenty of credentials out there to help them demonstrate that they don't just have a business degree, but maybe they've got something called AWS certification from Amazon, or they've got their certificate in financial planning, something that can give them a boost when they graduate, or even if they, gosh forbid, don't graduate. why should you wait 4 years to have something that should be of value in the marketplace? And this was my argument with the faculty who pushed back on this piece. I said, do you mean to tell me that everything that you teach doesn't mean anything until May, 4 years from the time the student starts? Oh, no, of course it does. Well, then let's just prove it. So, so we're on our way to making sure that every student will graduate with at least one what's called non-degree certification from Coker. And then finally, the last focus area is on vibrant professionalism. You know, I talked about we had to have a culture change at Coker. We had to focus on excellence and integrity and accountability. We have to model those things for young people. They look up to us. They trust their faculty and staff to help show them the way in a lot of different cases. And so for us, how do we stay current? Are our business faculty going out and themselves shadowing a vice president from a company, or talking to somebody with their CPA who has an accounting firm, so that our accounting graduates, have a connection or know what's going to be impactful in the next year. So we have to be vibrant professionals as we're trying to build up mostly young people to be vibrant professionals. So I would bring that back to say that's how the liberal arts stays alive at a school like Coker. We have a small endowment, about $50 million. It generates about $1.5 million a year towards my $26 million operating budget. We are not independently wealthy. And we have, I encourage people to think about that. If you graduated from a small school, how you can help ensure that there are scholarships for students and that your alma mater, if it did for you what we're hoping to do for the next generation and beyond, to support those institutions. So, I don't know the particulars around St. Andrews. I'm probably more familiar with Limestone. Right, so they were an hour and a half from Coker. They closed as well. They made their announcement, I think, 3.5 weeks before St. Andrews made its announcement. My guess is they followed some of the same path, though. Decline in enrollment without changing anything else. You can't work your way out of that continuous decline. You don't have a lot of money in the bank. You're competing with a lot of other schools, and most importantly, in our case, same with Limestone, our competitors are not other small privates really, it's the large publics. Oh yes, that's the vast majority of students who do not come to Coker go to larger public institutions. And so, how do you differentiate yourself? In Limestone's case, they borrowed a lot of money to build up their facilities. The build it and they will come scenario did not work for them, but to your point earlier, they were in denial. And so that's why I think, they closed horrifically, in my mind, the way they left students the way they did. We were fortunate. We transferred in a number of the St. Andrews students, particularly in nursing. Like, it was unbelievable that students had a semester left. And where were they going to go? So it really was moving. We had graduation in December last year. We had a number of St. Andrews nursing grads. We honored them. We called them out. Our student speaker in December was a St. Andrews transfer who finished in nursing. I had a mom come up to me and give me $100 and thanked me because she didn't know what her daughter would have done if we hadn't been where we were. We were lucky. We worked with, all higher ed institutions have accreditors, and they allowed us to waive certain requirements so those students could come on in and finish. And so in the end, I think most of St. Andrews students landed okay. But it's a bit of the Wild West out there, and you just got to keep riding the bull and holding on while you really strategize about the core things that are going to matter with all this noise out there. My focus is, can these predominantly young people go out and be good in the marketplace? get jobs, be lifelong learners, and contribute, then we're going to be okay.
Can you describe the freshman that shows up on your entryway?
Yes. So I will talk about last fall's class. Last fall's freshman class, for the first time in Coker's history, was more male than female. Higher ed, as some of you might know, has been predominantly female for the last 18 years. Coker started as a women's college. So what happened for us, I think, for that anomaly was we had two head coaches for male sports leave, and the majority of their teams followed them, so we had to backfill with extra guys. So I think that's what it was. Normally, it's not like that. But all that to say, so a little more male than female. About 70% came from South Carolina. That's lower than usually. We're around 85%. And again, it might have been the recruiting for those sports that happened. About 50% of our students are eligible for Pell, which means their family has a certain income level and they can get grants from the government. Our most popular program is business. Second is nursing. And third is exercise science, which isn't a surprise given that we have a fair number of sports at Coker. We have about almost 500 residential beds. They're not all full, but that's partly because our dining hall roof collapsed. And I mean, I could go on and on. So we had to stop using certain dorms that were connected to the dining hall. But that's our average student. I'd also say to you, and it's incredible though to see the marked difference in socialization as every year we get farther away from COVID. Those first couple of years were just really tough, but students are coming back to their own. They're more engaged. They're interested in socialization. In our strategic plan, it's titled Mastering Knowledge, Mastering Networks to Shape Your Future. Because our job is to teach content, right? We deliver content. They've got to have knowledge about it's business, it's nursing, it's exercise science, it's psychology, it's criminal justice, whatever they come to us for. But at the end of the day, almost everybody in this room would say at some point in your life somebody opened a door for you or pointed to you where the door was, and that's your network. Young people think they've got 500 followers on TikTok or Instagram, and I got a big network. Those people are not going to pass your paper resume to someone at lunch so they can look at it and decide to interview you. Some of that old school understanding of networks, they need to understand that. And so that's why, yep, you got to master your content, but you've also got to master those relationships, the networking opportunities that you get in college in order to be successful. So that's we have, of our 800 or so undergrads, about 65 that are international. That's a concern for me. Last year, international enrollment in higher ed in the U.S. dropped 15%. We did not lose, we stayed the same. But that pressure on international students not to study in the U.S. is more intense than ever. And it's very unfortunate because for us, they bring such a richness to campus. I mean, if you ever had come to one of our sporting events, they cheer for each other in their different languages. They got nicknames for each other in different languages. You know, if international days, it really does add to the exposure. For, again, you know, I've got the majority of my students are from South Carolina. Many of them have never left South Carolina. And all of a sudden you're sitting next to somebody from Lebanon on this side and someone from the Netherlands on the other side. It is awesome. But I talk to our students. I walk around and talk to our students a lot. And there's pressure, honestly, particularly from our students from the North Atlantic countries, this issue over Greenland. And their parents are like, are you sure you want to stay there? I'm not sure I should send my money to the United States. And so and as you know, well, if you follow education, you know, we are declining in the rankings of higher education around the globe. There are a lot of places where people can send their students. So, I mean, we had students from Venezuela who couldn't get back in time to start the spring semester. It's, you know, that is something that we are definitely paying attention to. So that was a long answer.
Good
But,
answer.
yes.
How have the alumni reacted to the transition at your school?
Well, every alumni I meet tells me it says it's nice to meet me. But I will tell you, one of the things that the board knew that had to change was there was benign neglect of decades of alums. So we are trying to catch up with that. So there's a lot of excitement, but it takes a long time to get people to follow up that excitement with an investment when they feel that their alma mater hasn't paid attention to them. And Coker did not do that for about 2 decades. So once they are connected and they tell you their stories, they're so excited, and then yes, a lot of them do think about it or they make a planned gift to the university. But for the most part, I would say from a tactical perspective, the alums that I've met said they are so glad to hear that we're focusing on the workforce piece, because in their day they got their diploma and we wished them good luck. So now they should have exposure to different work experiences, help them figure out what they want to do, what they don't want to do, and maybe make some better choices and have connections out there to help them get where they want to go. So. Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak to scholarships? What types of scholarships does Coker offer?
So we, from a private perspective, almost all of that 1.5 million goes into scholarships. So for Coker, room and board, if you're undergrad, room and board, we're about $40,000 a year. I held tuition flat for 4 years, and we just couldn't eat the increases anymore. So we have adjusted tuition up, but we're at $41,000, which puts us about the same rate as most privates in South Carolina, unless you're sort of considered an elite private like Wofford. They're more expensive than we are. Most students get on average, so if you take the room and board out, then we're about $33,000. Most students get about $15,000 in scholarships from that Coker gives, right? So not privates. And then we've probably got another, sounds like a lot, but $1 million in private scholarships, either through endowments. No, probably less than that, maybe $750,000 that goes to students. So we collect about $16 million in tuition every year, and we have probably about almost $2.5 million in scholarships that we can supply. That's far below average for us to be competitive. To be frank, it's nobody's fault in here, but as we weren't necessarily cultivating alumni for giving, we have catching up to do on our endowment to offer scholarships.
Well,
Carol is one of your alumni.
I am an alum.
Carol.
In 1970.
Oh.
So I'm old as dirt. But
No.
I just got this morning a notification from our representative at Coker that the scholarship that the class established has been awarded for the next year.
Great.
And I was so impressed with the young woman, the write-up of the young woman
Yes.
that received it.
Yes.
A major in chemistry, 3 minors, 1 in Spanish, 1 in chemistry, 1 in biology, or vice versa. Major in biology, a minor in chemistry, a minor in Spanish, and a minor in music.
Wow.
And she wants to go on to be a doctor and become part of Doctors Without Borders.
Wow.
Wow.
So I was just so impressed by that. if that's a representative of the students now that you're putting out there, I'm amazed. I just think it's wonderful.
So, Kara, let me just say that, first of all, thank you for supporting the scholarship. It so matters, you know, particularly when you're thinking about students that come from the PD region. They don't have the means to come to Coker. We're their aspirational school, and we know that when they apply, they indicate which schools they would like to go to. We're their aspirational school. It's the finances that are what they are. And I just can't help that. So, you know, the publics in South Carolina have kept tuition flat for 7 years. How they do that, though, is they take money from somewhere else, I like to say my tax dollars, and they prop the publics up with tuition mitigation dollars to absorb their increase in cost without increasing tuition. And I respect that. I mean, again, I think we need more educated people, not less, but private institutions don't have that capability, and not everybody is going to thrive at USC or at Coastal Carolina. I think small schools are about to have a really bright day again for a couple of reasons. One, because you can get that personalized attention. But two, in a time where the soft skills matter, right? Your ability to communicate, look people in the eye, shake their hands. You can't escape that at a small school, can you, Carol? So your faculty member is sitting across from you. I mentioned I walk campus all the time. I get right in students' faces. I don't care if they're on their phone, they got earbuds in. I'm like, how are you today? Because I want them to pop their head up, and I stand there until they acknowledge me and we have a conversation. And I'm not the only one that does that, because you can't do that at work. You have to pay attention to people around you. You have to greet people as they walk by. And so I love that on that campus, we force you to get those soft skills whether you like it or not. And listen, as Dr. Doble said, I went to a very large undergrad. I never interacted with anybody. As a first generation college student, I didn't even know what I was doing. Just kept my head down. I went to my job. I went to class. There was a lot I didn't gain because nobody missed me, right? I had 200 people in my English comp class. I had these massive physics class. Nobody missed me. And so, but you can't have that experience at Coker. And third, with all this artificial intelligence out there, it has never been easier for students to cheat. There's never been more pressure for them to cheat, and it's never been easier. But at Coker, Carol, I read your paper. Could you talk a little bit more about why you think X, Y, Z? And you have to come prepared, because your faculty member knows you don't talk like the way you just wrote. Or even if you get AI to do it that way, I know that last week you couldn't answer the questions I had from the reading. So how were you so eloquent in the way you put your paper together? We are actually going back in a lot of classes to blue notebooks and pencils, right? Absolutely. You can't, and again, I'm not dissing any other institution, but you're not going to get that at Clemson. But at Coker, just like in the workplace, somebody's going to step up to you and make you perform and make you be accountable. And I think that is a sweet spot for small schools. So it pains me when they close. I wish they had done some mitigation earlier so they wouldn't have had that problem. But Coker started that process 6 years ago. We have been all in from day one. And the fact that, quite frankly, we're stronger than we were probably 10 years ago is a testament to that. So just one last story. And I'll take more questions, certainly. But our women's basketball team just made history. Last week they won their first ever conference championship. So I know, I was so excited for them. And that is so sweet. But to me, the cherry on the top is one of the ladies that actually played and scored and contributed to them winning their way to the conference championship. Last year she was a freshman on the struggle bus. Academically, other issues, she could not even ride the team bus to the conference playoffs last year. And this year, she didn't give up on herself. We didn't give up on her. She didn't go home and say college isn't for people like us or people like me. man, she dug deep. We gave her the tools, and not only did she ride the bus, but I mean, she was a double-digit scorer in the semifinals. And that, to me, you don't get lost at Coker. Nobody writes you off. We're like, you think you got it because we think you got it, and we build you up. And when we have 50% of our students come in, they're Pell or they're first generation, and they don't even know what they don't know. They don't even know how to ask for help, which is really where so much of our students lose out. They just start a spiral. Oh gosh, I could go on and on about students, but I think that's why small schools really matter.
So how's your retention rate?
So our retention rate is very good. However, let me say this, and this is an example of why we were in trouble. We had a graduation rate of 36% when I started. I didn't ask about it at the interview because I thought it was a typo. I thought nobody, what is this, right? My first meeting with the board, I asked them if they knew. My first meeting with the faculty, I asked them if they knew that, and nobody knew it. But as someone who cares about your return on investment, who believes that your college experience ought to lead to something else, we couldn't abide by that. And we all got together and said we have to be different. So we focused on retention and we focused on graduation. What is different, though, really starting last year, is something called the transfer portal. So the majority of 60 to 65% of Coker students are student athletes. It is the Wild West. I said higher ed's the Wild West. So in the past, let's pick a number, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, if you came to Coker to play lacrosse, and then, now that's not a big sport in the South. Most of our lacrosse players don't actually come from the South. So if you came to Coker to wrestle, right, and then after your first year, you're like, I don't think this is the place for me, and you transferred somewhere else, you had to wait a year before you could wrestle again. So then the NCAA got rid of that. Now, there's no consequence for transferring. So there's an issue. Secondly now is is this thing called name, image, and likeness, where actually student or colleges are buying athletic ability. That's all it is. It is crazy. And so when you think about a Coker that has about half of its students need financial aid, and all of a sudden I'm the high scorer on the men's basketball team, and this is a true story, and another school says, I'll give you $5,000 to come there, that young man says, wow, I can get a car with air conditioning in South Carolina. I'm leaving for $5,000. Even if Coker's the best fit for them, in their $5,000, I mean, they don't have two nickels to rub together every day. Somebody thinks they're worth $5,000. So it is a struggle now for us to figure out what should retention be, because the gates aren't there anymore. I mean, the good news is we are a Division II school. We talk about student athletes. We live the word student comes first. This is the third year in a row that Coker has won the NCAA Division II Community Service Award. What that means is our students at Little Coker, 800 undergrads, did more community service work than Nova Southeastern with 25,000 students.
Wow.
Yeah, because we believe you got to develop the majority of athletes at Coker are not going to play professional soccer, be professional wrestlers. We want them to be good human beings. So we hire coaches that understand you're developing a young adult. You're not necessarily developing somebody for pro wrestling or the WWE or whatever it is. And they all do hours and hours of community service, because how are you going to be a good person if you don't have these other experiences? You can't find a not-for-profit in our community that isn't touched by our student athletes, from soup kitchens to hospitals to soccer camps for kindergartners. I mean, they do it all. Hours at the Humane Society, everything you can think of, our students do it. So I don't even know. Look at that. I got so excited. I forgot what the question was.
We're talking about
retention. Yeah, so,
Got to the portal.
thank you. So
We've entered the portal.
yeah, so we've entered the portal. That's right. We've entered the portal. So we are fighting the tide of, don't think about loyalty, don't think about commitment, think about the money, think about the prestige. And I mean, we're lucky at this point in Division II. Most of the parents understand that that's not a reality. They want their child to have a good collegiate experience overall. But we've had students go D1 thinking the grass was greener, and they've transferred back to us. But it's not over yet. I mean, the next big thing, right, is something called eligibility. So right now, you essentially have 5 years of eligibility to play a sport in college. The way the courts are ruling, you'll get 18 years,
Yeah.
which sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? So let me just go off here on another tangent. But maybe, you love UNC, and you love football, and they have an amazing quarterback at UNC. You want him to age out? If he continues to win championships, should he leave? He's 27, he's 28 years old. He's making $4 million a year at UNC being the quarterback. Isn't that what college is supposed to do, prepare you for your next job? Right? I mean, it's crazy.
Upside down.
It is so upside down, but I don't know how you walk it back. I don't know how you walk it back. But again, I feel lucky in Division II. Mostly our parents understand it's about the collegiate experience, but the buying of athletes' abilities is a game that schools like Coker cannot play. I don't have enough scholarship money, let alone money to pay athletes to stay. So we are struggling. We're all struggling to figure out, well, what is the right retention number? How much can we actually control? I don't know anymore. I mean, we doing everything we can, but I think it's going to take us a few years to understand the impact of some of these changes at the NCAA level. Yes, sir.
Is there any place at Coker for the traditional humanities? Things like English literature and history and philosophy?
We certainly still teach those courses, sir. We absolutely do. And you can get majors in them with a consortium that we have. So one of the ways that small schools are offering more degree options is there's a consortium. So we can teach, I don't know, pick a number. Let's say 10 of the courses that you need, and you can finish the rest of the courses within the consortium as a Coker student if you want to do that.
I should tell you that my undergraduate work was in English literature, my graduate work was in history, and I taught for almost 30 years at the community college.
Thank you for doing that.
So
Good
we
work.
worked it in.
Yes, no, I think, again, I believe in the liberal arts in terms of all of those skills they give you, that the technical pieces, then come in and fill the knowledge base, but you've got to be able to communicate. Yes, ma'am.
How many of your students are first generation, and how many students are entirely not on campus? Do you have a distance learning?
Yes, so we have about 100 online undergrads, and out of the 800, all of our master's programs are online, but we have 6 master's programs, and they're all online. And then first generation, we run 40 to 50%. But that's sort of been a little bit of a conscious decision on my part. Sometimes it's good to be queen. But I would not be here. I'm first generation. If without an education, I would never have the chance to have this job. And I just so believe education opens doors. You don't have to walk through all of them, but if you don't have an education, they're just not available to you. So when I started and I was talking about our graduation rate, and honestly, we had maybe less than 25 students from our county at Coker. And there was a pride point there. We get all these students from other states, and I was like, but you forgot the lady that brought you to the dance. I mean, what about your own dance? I mean, I really was just that blunt about it. So we've started programs like we're auto-accepting every high school student that meets our eligibility requirements because, even though it's many decades later, why do we make people jump through hoops? I mean, if you're not surrounded by people who understand how to go to college, Then you got to fill out your application. You got to fill out the FAFSA. Oh wait, but we need this documentation from you, and you don't have your high school. I mean, your family. It's what we want to do is make it easy. We want you to go home, sit at the dining room table for dinner, and go, Mom and Dad, I got accepted to Coker. But you know what I mean? Now, how do we find the money? And there should not be any barriers anymore. So we are much stronger in terms of locally who we've got on campus. But I don't think we're there yet. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot more opportunity. This mindset of you don't have to go to school is an excuse for some people, for some parents about their kids. Just be honest with you.
Makes me want to go back to college and be a student in that environment.
Yes, well, that's how we want them to feel.
Natalie, when I
Yes.
was there, most of the majors were education. Where does that stand at Coker now?
So we still have education. I don't think you can touch a school district in this state and not have a Coker grad there, and I love that. It's smaller. Why? Listen, being a teacher is not easy. We don't pay them well enough, and we, from a society perspective, I'll tell you, we do not. And this could be too strong of a word, but we do not glorify teaching in the way that we should. I mean, they make or break young minds. So because it doesn't pay as well, and because people aren't necessarily out there talking great stories about the teaching profession, every teaching program in this country has shrunk, right?
There's no return.
Yeah, that's what, and which is so wrong. I mean, there's just, so anyway, I would not be here if I didn't have good teachers, right? I mean, so we still have our education program, although our traditional day program has shrunk. We are also the only second site in the state that has an alternative pathway to becoming teacher certified. If you have a bachelor's degree, we can fast track you and do it in about 13 months. So, which all adults, they're awesome. They just realize they want to be in the classroom, which is what you want for teachers. So that's still very strong for us, very important to us.
How many students do you have at Coker from the area, say Lee County, Darlington County, Florence County?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm going to say of our 800 undergrads, we're probably 30% from our community, 30 to 40% from the community, I would say county adjacent. Yes.
Are you pretty consistently at 1,000 students every year?
We are now.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have room for growth.
Okay.
So yes.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Natalie.
Oh.
Okay, any more questions?
Oh, listen, I could be here all day, honestly.
This is threefold.
Yes, ma'am.
Entrance requirements, acceptance rate, you have students that have to go into remediation.
Okay. Entrance requirements, you have to have a 2.5 GPA. Listen, and I want to say all this because it's crazy. It's a 2.5 GPA, but it is so hard for us. I mean, a 2.5 from Marlboro County, is that the same as a 2.5 from Charleston County? Is that the same as a 2.5 from Thomas Hart Academy? It's so. So I will say this: we no longer do SAT, ACT. I am someone who I just felt that it's just not representative of a student's capacity or capability. So we're not test optional. We are like, you can send them in, but whatever. So it's a 2.5, not that stringent. Do we have students that do have to do catch-up work? Yes, we do, absolutely. And the acceptance rate. So here's another interesting point of view, back to a little bit to retention. Last year, students that applied to come to Coker applied to an average of 6.67 schools. So this year already, it's 10 schools. So when schools say, we've had a record number of applicants, to me, I'm just like, everybody's got a record number of applicants. I really feel it's a dishonest, because students now, there's something called the Common App. You can click all the schools you want. Coker, Clemson, Coastal Carolina, College of Charles, I mean, they're just clicking through. Are they a good fit for us? I don't know. But so we really, this year, are like, we can't count on what used to be our yield rate, right? First they were applicants, then they were accepted, then they deposited, then they moved to student, they enrolled. But that worked when you were only applying to 2 or 3 schools. Every year we have record applications, we have record acceptance, but students are now depositing at 4 to 5 schools. So we can't even count on that. It's just the Wild West in a lot of different ways. So and that makes me so angry when you see a school and they're like, well, we only accepted 4.6% of the people that applied to us. I'm like, why are you so proud of that? You know how many people need to be educated in this country? I mean, you can walk around and say how selective you were, but how did you help the other, 95.4% that didn't get in? You just sent them. So we try to work really hard with students that either don't meet our requirements. We encourage you to go, in our case, Florence Darlington Tech or Northeast Tech. Go for a year or 2, you can build your GPA up, save your money, and then transfer to Coker and finish your 4-year degree. So we try to be proactive, not proud of the fact that you didn't get in.
Okay, I think it's about time to go to lunch. In the introduction, I did not say, the first time I saw Dr. Harder, I apologized to her. I apologized to her by telling her that I had tried to get the board to hire an interim president to solve the problems that she was going to inherit, but they had chosen to let her do that. And you can understand why she was so successful doing that, because she inherited a mess. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, and I'm fortunate. It is a gift to be on a campus. Young people, I know there's a lot of noise out there. They are optimistic. They think they're going to change the world. They have no idea how they're going to do it. But they're still, I think the one thing that stays the same is they got plans. The world's their oyster, and if I have a bad day, I just get up from my desk and tell myself to knock it off, and I walk around campus, and then I get in their face. But just to see that, I'm so proud of this next generation. That they've got a lot of messes to clean up, and it's our responsibility, I feel, to support higher ed so they can do it with all the possible tools that we can give them and that they can figure out how to make later. So I appreciate being out here and sharing my thoughts. So thank you all for your time. And thank you.
Now, Bob would want me to say we've got another lifelong learning coming up, but I've forgotten what it is, Bob.
Natalie is being followed by bees. The Wagram Aviary will come, and they're going to talk. Mary Stone will come. They have hives all over the state.
When is that?
I don't know. And she will talk about pollination, which becomes very critical to the rural kind of community that we live in.
They also shipped in all over the United States.
There we go. Carol, aren't you proud?
I am very proud.
Natalie, thank you.
Well, no,
Could not be better, my dear.
Oh, well, thank you. And we have Coker beehives now. My husband's Italian, and when we moved to Hartsville, he planted a garden, and he could not get any tomatoes or cucumbers, and he started looking around, and he said, there are no bees here. So he learned how to keep bees, and then the governor's school now keeps bees, and we have a class this fall on beekeeping, and so bees matter.
There we are.
Yeah.
Can we come to Hartsville for a tour?
Anytime, ma'am, anytime. Dr. Doubles knows how to get in touch with me. Yes, ma'am. I would love that.
Friends, go in peace.